thing and see if it's working. That's
Red Panda.
pretty.
Uh-huh.
You got things there. Do, 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 do. I think we're started. Whoa, Identity 4 says we're live. That's
All right.
wonderful. I'm just checking our... YouTube doesn't want me to be live right now. So I don't know what's going on. TWIS action! Yay. Do we sound okay, everyone? We're here. This is the are we on the air moment. Does this thing work? We are here for some science conversation. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And YouTube. Sound is good. Okay. And Justin so far has not had any noises.
And
Knock
if you
on all
can,
the wood.
Mhm.
you have wood in your hair.
My head's made of wood.
Your head's made of wood. What?
Pinocchio Blair.
Yeah. I'm a real girl.
Did I lose my studio by moving things over? I'm trying to organize all my my windows to be able to see everything, and then I went and I lost something. Where did I put it? Where did I put my studio?
Identity 4 says, Dr. Kiki, you are quiet. Justin is loud. Blair is in the middle.
Oh, that sounds about right. I keep turning up the gain on this stuff, and I don't know why this mixer, why I come across as so quiet. I sound loud to myself. Justin sounds fine, and Blair sounds fine. But why? Why?
Mm.
Well, I'm boosting the gain a bit. How's
There
that?
you go.
Yeah.
You're booming.
Good.
Booming. All right. Well, let us do a show then, shall we?
Hurrah.
Hurrah. Let's make this happen. We all have audio. We are good to go. So, starting the show in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 735, recorded on Wednesday, August 21st, 2019. What's in a brain? Hey everyone, I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight we will fill your head with brains, bones, and koala poo. But first...
Disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. The following program is not intended for all audiences. If you are curious-minded or like learning about curious things, if you like thinking logically or speculating wildly about where logic may lead, if you like methodical inquiry or asking questions with no established pathways to find the answers, if you like science, you have come to the right place. If, on the other hand, the very idea that the world is more complicated than you might have assumed fills you with dread and you enjoy a good scare, you have come to the right place. If, on the other hand, you are physically allergic to knowledge, wonder, and unbiased curiosity, by all means, stay tuned and document your symptoms so that we may find a cure for you. Come to think about it, this show actually might be intended for all audiences. So welcome everyone to another episode of This Week in Science. Coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
Good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
And a good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We are back again to talk about all the science that we found fit to bring to the show this week. You know, there are hundreds, thousands of papers published weekly around the world. So we don't bring quite that many, but I like to think that the stories we bring are always interesting. So, what did we bring tonight? I brought stories about brains. That's pretty much it. Brains and behavior. There we go. That's all I have. Justin, what did you bring?
I've got a toxoplasm mystery solved. I've got Summering by Lake of Bones, underwater archaeology, and Mongolia.
You've got Mongolia.
Mongolia.
It's like Trump wanting Greenland. I don't know. Okay.
Yeah, but I made my deal.
And Blair, what is in the animal corner?
Oh, I brought some koala poop. I brought locust face plants. And I brought some bioluminescence.
Ooh, that's always luminescent and bio at the same time. It's very cool.
It's always luminescent bioing, yes. All right, let's jump into all of the science goodness. So we want to jump into things, but before we do, I want to remind you that it would be wonderful if you would check out TWIS.org. That's where you can find out how to subscribe if you are interested over on YouTube or on the Google Play podcast portal. And what's the other one? Oh, yeah, the Apple podcast directory. The three big ones. We are also available on Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, Radio.com, Pandora. You name it, we're pretty much there. Just look for This Week in Science, and we hope that you will find us. TWIS.org, that's our website. Jumping into the science, I am going to start with, brains. Like I said, lots and lots of brains. So first we're going to start in the distant past with the question of how did we evolve from our ancestors? This giant cranium. Look at the size of that cranium. Well, that giant cranium that humans happen to have, it didn't come out of nowhere. The presiding... Huh?
No, never mind. I was going to say where it actually comes out of, but it doesn't. It's not where you meant.
Yeah. This head of ours, this brain of ours that allows us to speak and cognate, have all sorts of wonderful behaviors and abilities. It came down a long line of evolution, and that is the presiding view, that it was a line. And we kind of think of the picture of like, hey, look at our ancestors with their really tiny brains. And then look, the brains got bigger with time, and then suddenly a massive leap in processing power and abilities of behavior, and our brains are huge. Well, researchers just published this week a new study that is in Science Advances, led by researchers from the American Museum of Natural History, the Chinese Academy of Sciences, and the University of California, Santa Barbara. And they posit, dun dun dun, that the brain got big and small and big and small and didn't grow in this linear way. Surprise, surprise to our TWIS listeners, right? If you've been listening to Justin for so many years, listening to the stories that we bring, it's a braided stream, right? And it's not going to be a linear progression. Right. Why did we think it would be? Well, it's the limitation of the fossils that we've had. And so now they say that over the course of anthropoid history, that the path of that brain evolution is a lot more complex and interesting than others had previously recognized. The researchers say human beings have exceptionally enlarged brains, but we know very little about how far back this key trait started to develop. This is in part because of the the scarcity of well-preserved fossil skulls of much more ancient relatives. So the older they are, the more broken up into lots of pieces they are. They're not well preserved. And so it's been harder to know exactly how big things are, how they've grown. We don't have that many. So it's a very limited sample set. Well, these researchers were looking at a 20 million year old fossil that was discovered in the mountains of Chile. It's this little tiny skull known as Chilicebus carasoensis. And over 30 years, these researchers have been looking at lots of different fossils, and they say that Chilicebus is one of those rare and truly spectacular fossils, revealing new insights and surprising conclusions every time new analytical methods are applied to studying it.
But this isn't Chile at 20 million years ago. How is this at all relevant to the brain of human peoples?
Because it's an anthropoid. It's an ancient ancestor of ours. And so previous work gave a rough idea of this thing called encephalization, which is the brain size relative to body size. And if you have a really high encephalization quotient, then that means that you've got a big brain for an animal of a given size. And a lot of primates tend to have high EQs related to other animals. These researchers now took this encephalization quotient and they changed it, and they've done the encephalization not just in relation the brain to body size, but the phylogenetic relationships around the organism in their family tree. So it illustrates a pattern within the family tree. So Chilicebus has this really small PEQ, phylogenetic encephalization quotient. It's 0.79. A lot of monkeys nowadays are somewhere around 0.86 to around 3. Humans, however, we're 13.5-ish. Woo! Look at our big brains. But this new framework, they have confirmed once and for all that this enlargement of brains occurred repeatedly and independently throughout evolution. So it's not necessary, and things decreased too. So it's not necessarily a completely linear relationship.
And I wonder if it's relevant to be looking at brain size versus blood flow. Because it was one of the stories that keeps sticking with me that I was so intrigued at. And when they looked at the enlarging of the opening of the pathways of blood into the brain over time, and that they found, I don't know how linear it was really, but that was what they were sort of those researchers had been focusing on to try to determine not just the size of the brain, but actually the functionality. Like how much were we relying on it? How much blood resource were we pouring through this organ to get it to do things for us? So it's always important. While we have a 2, 3, 4, 5 that we're at the 13 quotient versus the up to 3 on a monkey, it's the blood flow goes up like 600 times over that period. So there's another element though.
There are more. Yeah. So the big point is how many factors do you involve in your analysis to really see what happened? I mean, I think the big thing here is just the real data behind it. As much as people wanted to say old monkeys had little tiny brains, new monkeys, bigger brains, humans, giant brain, it's simple. It just progressed. Now it's like, no, it didn't. And it's not even necessarily related. It has had to do with other external factors. Could be blood flow, could have been ecological niche factors that we're not even considering. Something they brought up in here as well is there's an evolutionary trade-off that has been considered kind of as fact for a very long time, that that animals that see really well have visual acuteness, that they have weaker senses of smell. And there's always been thought of this trade-off. You have a big olfactory bulb, you have little eyes or a little visual system. Big visual system, little olfactory bulb. And in this Chilicebus, they discovered that was not a trade-off. It didn't. They did not have this kind of trade-off. And so there's evidence now that maybe this coupling of vision and olfaction didn't necessarily happen as tightly as we have thought throughout history. So there are a lot of little things coming out of this little tiny old 20 million year old fossil remnant.
You know what I want to see now? I want to. This is intriguing me for a totally different reason, but I want to see similar, different sized monkey brains that have similar blood flow, and see if you can see any sort of a difference. And then you need the ratio. You need the big blood flow with the smaller brain and the whole. You need a kind of an array of different. But I want to see which one seems to impact an organism's life, or I mean intelligence, based on. That'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, moving on from the past, let's come to the present. Humans do these awesome things. We've got the language ability. Our brain allows us to do that. Researchers at UC Berkeley, a couple of years ago, we reported on this too, at the Gallant Lab. They have been mapping where words are represented in the brain. And it turns out that we think we just have a language center, right? This language center that's what manages language, allows you to understand things or allows you to speak. Well, it turns out language is represented all over your entire brain. It's just all over the place. And you'll have the word for top represented in one part of the brain, around other words that have to do with like blouse, shirt, things related to a shirt kind of top. And then top will be in another part of your brain around things like cover or roof or lid and these other meanings. So these words of similar meaning tend to map together, but in various locations all over the brain. And these locations also are kind of similar between individuals. So where these words show up in my brain is actually kind of similar to where it shows up in your brain. And in addition to that, they've moved forward now, and this research is fun because what they had people do previously was just listen to a story, and they used the storytelling program, The Moth, which is a long-time show for storytelling. You can get it as a podcast, easily downloadable, amazing stories. And people come in, sure, I'm volunteering for this study. I get to hang out and listen to The Moth. Awesome stories. Sounds great. Meanwhile, fMRI, and here's where these words are showing up as blood flow activation in various areas of the brain based on time. Now, they had people read a transcript of the stories, and they mapped the brain, and they had them listen to a story, the same story from The Moth, and they mapped that to the brain. Where do you think, or do you think the words that were heard and the words that were read were mapped to similar or different locations in the brain?
So this has been the thing when it comes to having a technology that can read people's thoughts, or humans being able to share thoughts through direct brain-to-brain connection. I've never believed that where I store the word blouse has any relationship to where you store the word blouse. I think they're in completely different places. Now, but what you're posing is auditory word association versus read word association, and if they're stored differently. And I would think, yes, I would think they were stored in different places.
I would guess it would depend what kind of learner you are.
Oh, very good.
Because I know that I learn way better from reading than from listening, even though I love to listen. But I feel like I would not absorb the meaning of words as quickly or as readily if I was listening versus if I was reading.
So what if it's a mix? Like you have some words that you totally comprehend immediately in a set part of the brain when you read them, and when you hear them, it's more vague. It's not the same quite. It has different connotations when you hear the word than when you read it. Huh.
Yeah,
that'd be interesting too. But I don't know. Now we get
I would guess mostly different.
And this is also the thing I love about the show is that we're speculating. Kiki's got the answer.
Yeah, she has the answer.
I have the answer. And surprise, surprise, the same locations.
Wow. Nice.
The words that were read and the words that were heard mapped to the same locations in the brain. all over the brain. And even though there are separate auditory systems and separate visual reading systems, there is something about language that uses all of the brain, and it's similar. We're accessing the same information when we're listening to something and when we're reading it.
So it was the same within the same individual. How much similarity was there between different individuals?
That I don't know for sure. I would need to look into that a little bit.
Because I still think where I
more
put
closely.
blouse is not where you put blouse. But it turns out whether I read blouse or hear blouse, it's in the same place in my brain. I just feel like it might be in a different place than you put it.
So my other question is, based on the way English works, we have words, right? But other languages focus on phrases.
Oh.
So there's a question there that I have about, if they're mapping as they listen to or read a transcript from the moth, are they mopping every single word, or are they mopping section? Are they mapping?
Mopping.
Mopping.
I'm gonna
Are they
mop it all
mopping
up.
up sections
It's a
of?
word that Blair knows how to read.
You see, I went to the part of my brain about
Yeah.
mops instead of mapping. No, it's are they mapping sections, or is it really just word by word?
They were so what they used fMRI to record brain activity in these experiments while participants listened or read, and then created voxel-wise encoding models to characterize semantic selectivity in each voxel and in each individual participant. We find that semantic tuning during listening and reading are highly correlated in the most semantically selective regions of cortex.
So it's just during the process, just
Yeah.
as kind of a running clock.
There's
Because
also
I do think
languages
there's
that are more tonal.
It's meaning, though. This is the
Yeah.
brain eliciting meaning from signals, whether
Right.
it's a visual signal or a heard signal. These are signals that correlate to a particular meaning. So if it's an idiomatic speech, or if it's tonal, or if it's Germanic, whatever, I don't think it would necessarily matter so much. I mean, they've only done this in English from using the moth at UC Berkeley. This is not something that they have done elsewhere, but or with other languages. But I would think that since it's representation of the meaning of words or of phrases, that would be that is the key similarity.
It is, but there's something exciting about that too when you mentioned the tonal languages. Because if it's the same word, but tonally how it's expressed changes the meaning. Are those disparate? Now, are those because it's just a tonal change?
But
do they get clustered?
Yeah.
That would be real. That's a
very
question.
interesting question. Yeah, that is very interesting. But the words themselves, they have different accents, don't they, to indicate the tonality when they're written?
Yeah, and then you also have the words that have multiple meanings even in English, and I wonder how if
top,
they get
for example.
Top.
If I was thinking like bat, we can be talking about something that flies or something you hit a ball with. Do they like this baseball and bats get somehow accidentally
Put
clustered together in the brain because of this, or do they? Or like no, this is over in the animal kingdom. This is where we name things over here. This is a tool. This isn't with
both.
Right? Like how,
so you have bat represented with other animals that fly, bats, birds, or if your brain has put it into like rodent type things, then maybe you're categorizing it with rodents. I don't know, even though they're not. But then
you're right. Like if visual morphology similarities get stuck together, it's like how does the brain categorize? How well have we done this?
Right. These are very interesting questions. I don't know. I think the exciting part of this, though, is being able to figure out how does the brain represent language? How does it interpret language? And I think eventually this is going to influence how artificial intelligence learns to use language as well. So the chatbots are just going to get smarter based on this.
I think this is a great kind of window into why humans are so obsessed with categorizing things. Because this is how our brains work. This is why we're so focused on what group does this animal belong to, and what do I know you from, and all of these kind of categorized base. what kind of human are you? Like, just, we get really focused on categories because this is how our brain works, is by putting things in neat little boxes with like things.
Yeah. A question in the chat room from Schnago wondering if words are stored in different languages for polyglots, where they would be stored. And that, I think, would be a fascinating addition to this. No
I
idea.
mean,
but
like
that's...
if you knew 2 languages, do you try to stick all the words next to the ones what they mean?
Yeah.
Would they all
yeah.
would they all be associated by meaning? Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
good.
I mean, I know that
Anyway.
when I was learning Hebrew, I had already taken French in high school and college, right? And so when I didn't know a word in Hebrew and I was speaking, I would often insert the French word in,
Yeah.
which,
because it was still in a foreign language.
yes. And so I feel like that kind of tracks with that, right? Is that your brain is trying to complete the sentence and you're sticking the like word into that place.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, I think it would make sense.
Moving on from this study, another study of brain mapping and figuring out how things are organized. This one was published this week. I'm trying to scroll to the top of the page in Nature Communications. And the researchers here were looking at not reading and listening, but reading versus math ability. Now, unlike listening and reading, which are apparently all in the same places in the brain when it comes to figuring out meaning, reading and math have completely different areas of the brain where activation takes place. So while you're reading, certain areas of the brain are taking place. If you're computing an answer, different areas of the brain are working. There are connectors, tracts of white matter. These are the axons, the connecting cables between different parts of the brain that allow the networks of cells in the brain to communicate so that you can have, say, that semantic meaning of a phrase that evokes a memory in you, or that you're able to understand, hey, this number isn't an S, it's a 5. I know this is a 5, and now I can add these numbers together. So there are these axons that connect the visual and the computational and cognitive areas of the brain to each other. Even though the reading and the math parts of the brain are separate, the information travels down these long axons. They're called fascicles, and they are just bundles of axons, this white matter. And they all get bundled together. So the math and the reading, those signals are traveling through your brain all together in the same paths. Now, this study did some really interesting fMRI work to dig into what was even finer resolution inside these tracts of axons and how information was flowing within them. And they found out that these, even though they're bundles of neurons, of these wires between different areas of the brain, the bundles contain little tiny wires that have different purposes. And math and reading stick to their own wires. They stay in their own lanes. So even though they're in the
if I have a
same
math
bundles,
problem it's like a word problem in math,
yeah.
it's trying to go down 2 different lanes at the same time.
Well, the reading part of it is going to go down the reading lane, and the math part of it is going to drive down the math lane.
At what speed? You got to tell me what speed to go. Otherwise, I can't solve it.
Well,
They left Chicago at 4 p.m. Right, driving at 50 miles an hour, and another left Boston at 3.
Should I be in the math
at
lane
95.
yet? Because I don't feel like I've switched lanes. I'm still listening to the story. Okay, where are they going?
So maybe this is why word problems are so hard, especially for younger kids in school, is that they're trying to figure out how to get these 2 lanes to work together.
Right, the lanes need to work together, but they are separate areas of the brain. Yeah, the information in the brain, this information is kept separate, sticks to its own lane.
I would also argue that this is why cross-cutting curriculum is so important in schools, is because you have to be working out these different areas of the brain simultaneously in order to get all of your brain working. I think that that's something that schools are doing better at, and school districts are doing better at, but it's still something that has to be worked on. Is not, okay, this is math time, and okay, this is English time.
Yeah.
If you can get the whole brain lit up at once, that would be great.
It would be great. Let's light up those brains, everybody. I hope that's what happens when people listen to TWIS. I'm done with my brainy stories. Justin, tell me a story.
Oh my goodness. I don't know if I got one. Oh, wait. Oh, I do. Woo.
Hope you've got more than one. We got some time left.
Toxoplasma gondii, the pernicious parasite that needs very little introduction other than it blinds babies, causes behavioral changes in humans and in mice, and only completes its full life cycle in cats. Which begs the question, why cats? Not just why have cats, because there's obviously no logical reason for anybody to cohabitate with something that if it was just a little bit bigger would try to eat you. But why do they only complete their life cycle in cats? So new research published in the open access journal PLOS Biology answers the question, solves the mystery. The sexual phase of the parasite's life cycle requires linoleic acid, a nutrient lipid found at uniquely high levels in felines because cats lack an enzyme for breaking it down. That's it. Cats don't have the right enzyme, so it builds up, and it's exactly what this parasite wants and likes. This is a finding from Bruno Martorelli de Genova and Laura Knoll, University of Wisconsin-Madison colleagues. And they think this might lead to a treatment to reduce the spread of the parasite from cats to humans, as well as into other places. So it can live in any mammal. The toxoplasma can live in absolutely any mammal, but for the gametes, the little sexual cells, it's cats only because it needs this nutrient, and the cat lacks the enzyme that apparently all other mammals have.
But why don't cats have it?
I don't know why cats don't have it. They're deficient, obviously. They're mutant creatures.
Now this is just getting at your dislike of cats, but
it's such a weird specific thing.
So evil and so cute at the same time.
Do other cats also lack this? Do tigers? This is what I'm very curious.
So it says felines. So I don't know how broad they mean to paint that. I don't know. It's largely because of the human interaction around. If people did keep lions and tigers, jaguars as pets, people
listen.
Would live
I
long.
spent time in tiger den boxes.
I'm just saying, if they were a little bit bigger, we would obviously recognize the problem of keeping them as pets. Just I'm
saying
small.
I could have toxoplasmosis if tigers had it, because I spent time in what is basically a giant tiger litter box.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, absolutely.
That sounds like fun.
It was not. I almost passed out. It's it's so much ammonia.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, cats do have a different digestive system, and they are obligate carnivores. And there's one nutrient that they have to get because they have to eat meat so that they can get this one particular amino acid. I don't remember what it is, but yeah, they're obligate carnivores because of the amino acids in the diet, and it may have something to do with this buildup of linoleic acid. Who knows? But I'm just thinking it's how interesting it is if we could give cats in their food or in their water something that would break it down. Ta-da!
As long as it doesn't
Problem
kill them.
Solved, right?
I mean, this is the thing. We don't know why. I mean, there could be, as Blair says, why don't they have it? There might be a thing that's like the cats need. We don't really know that yet. But what they did do is they knocked out the enzyme that breaks it down in mice and introduced toxo to these mice, and they got sexual reproduction of the Toxoplasma gondii in mice,
which is unusual.
So, which is it doesn't normally happen. So they sort of circle. That's how they the proof of their experiment. So this is also I didn't realize Toxoplasma is the leading cause of foodborne illness in the U.S. I did not know that. That's according to the CDC.
What?
Yeah, the most common route of infection in humans is by consumption of raw or undercooked meat. Cat litter is a big source of this. Of course, this is why they tell pregnant women to avoid, because it causes blindness and other problems in
Right.
children.
Mhm.
Cats usually excrete 2 to 20 million oocytes per day in their
Yep,
feces.
it's a lot.
And that shedding goes on for 5 to 10 days post-infection. In ambient air and temperature, oocytes undergo a sporulation process to mature and become the T. gondii, in which become infectious T. gondii, in which they are stable then for 18 months in unfavorable environmental conditions. And they're resistant to many
Woohoo.
chemical disinfectants. So that's partly why the spread can be so infectious as to. And if you notice, there are a lot of cats within society of humans for some reason.
Because they're soft and cuddly.
Yes.
They're so cute. Yes. Yeah. Well, we can maybe help. Well, the scientists are going to figure out this toxo thing. They're working on it.
This would be
This is the
a big
direction.
step, and I think what'll happen is that it will lead to less cats as pets.
So
I don't think so.
I have
Let's talk
an
about
ulterior
other
motive.
things.
I have one last thing. I have an ulterior motive for why I don't want them to fix this. And it is because this is a great reason for people not to have outdoor cats, because that fixes this problem. If they're not outdoor cats, they're not going to give you toxo. And when you have outdoor cats, they kill endangered species. So there's actually a great benefit to not fixing this problem. So more people will keep their cats inside.
Blair, that's like you're talking about like a dozen people nationwide.
No.
that are because of toxo keeping their
well,
cats
at least
indoors.
for example, in Australia, there's actually rules now where you can't have outdoor cats. So there's actually an opportunity to, expand that. And anyway, it's a good reason to keep your cats inside, and I would like to keep it.
How about just keep your cats inside so they don't kill birds and other endangered species? Hey, there we go. Be
Unfortunately,
a
it's not as
responsible cat
motivating.
owner.
On to the next.
Next story.
Next story. High in the Himalayan mountains, there is a lake. Roopkund Lake, also known as Mystery Lake. It's a lovely lake. Actually, it's a frozen lake almost all year long, covered in ice and snow, surrounded by frozen rocky terrain in a very uninhabitable area.
Is this where we start singing that Led Zeppelin song?
Almost. And just as the ice and the snow melt away in the summer sun, it gets a new name. Instead of Mystery Lake or Roopkund, people start referring to it as Skeleton Lake, because the lake bottom is covered in thousands and thousands of bones, and they happen to be human bones. Large-scale study conducted by an international team of scientists has revealed that the mysterious skeletons of Roopkund Lake belong to a wildly genetically distinct group of people that died at very different times. So there's a lot of stories about who these people were. It was the king and the queen and their entourage. It was this army that was passing this gap, and they got stuck in the lake. All of these stories about this being one group that had an ill-fated end. But it turns out the real story, based on what they've been able to find from these bones, is very different. This is published in Nature Communications. There's an international team of 28 researchers from institutions in India and the United States and Europe. So this is situated at over 5 kilometers above sea level, which, for those not familiar with kilometers, 5 kilometers is about, what is it? 500 meters or something like this? 5,000 meters?
5,000.
It's like a lot. 5,000 meters. It's about 5,000 meters above sea level. Current publication that this is a decade-long study looking at DNA and doing some deeper dives into some of the metabolites. They discovered that these people, or at least from 3 genetically distinct groups. So they did mitochondrial DNA of 72 skeletons, and A lot of those haplogroups were present in Indian populations. Some of them were from West Eurasia, and there was even one from Southeast Asia. So they then went and did whole genome sequencing of 38 of the individuals, and they discovered that 23 individuals, present day India. They could be from different regions, the populations anywhere within India is perfectly diverse as it is. The second largest group was 14 individuals that were most closely related to people who live in present day Greece. And another individual, again, Southeast Asia. So this little, it's not a big lake, but it's claimed hundreds of victims, and it wasn't in one event. They found that two of the major groups were deposited approximately 1,000 years apart. So the mystery of this, it's a very hard to get to, very rural place. There's two possibilities. One is people get attracted to this lake, and something about the weather can change quickly, or avalanches, and they get sucked down into this lake and they die, or they walk across and they fall through because it's hidden under the snow. Maybe they're just falling through ice en masse. The other possibility is that it's just a great place to preserve people, and people are constantly falling into frozen lakes all over the world. It's just this one.
Oh, I thought you were trying to say it was a burial ground. Like,
no,
my grandma.
This one isn't that deep. So like when the snow melt happens and it kind of rushes away, like you can see everything. But in larger frozen lakes, people fall through all the, there's like tens of thousands and any like high altitude lake, bodies at the bottom. Just nobody's noticed it yet.
So there's in California, at least, and I guess Nevada probably too, there's a rumor that Lake Tahoe is absolutely covered in the bottom with dead bodies.
Yes, I've heard this.
Yes. But potentially rather unfounded. But if that second kind of hypothesis could be true, perhaps Lake Tahoe is just carpeted with it.
Okay, so this is the story that I've never gotten any form of confirmation on. But there was a point in time in which the bottom of Lake Tahoe had not been discovered yet. And apparently Jacques Cousteau and company went to go do some, underwater submergible videoing. And what they apparently found was, well-preserved Native Americans and a bunch of guys in nice suits from like the 50s in the cement galoshes, like standing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And so they couldn't use their footage and then had to leave. I think it's a nonsense story, but it sounds good.
It sure does.
And it would kind of fit. Like that's, it's cold enough and deep enough. And yeah, why not?
It's casino town,
It's a casino town.
Yeah, absolutely. There's Kiki. She rejoined.
Well, just in time, because you know what time it is
now? My gosh. Kiki, it's time.
Is it time?
Yes.
For Blair's Animal Corner?
It sure is.
With Blair?
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair?
Oh my goodness, I have Dr. Justin's daughter, Dr. Poo Pills.
What?
For koalas.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I forgot I did that side project.
Yes, it's a very fun side project, saving koalas. So as you know, koalas have all sorts of issues right now. Most of them have chlamydia, and they're dying of that. They're dying from habitat loss. One of the big issues with habitat loss is that there are a bunch of different kinds of eucalyptus out there, but koalas in specific areas are used to eating very specific species of eucalyptus. And so this is a study looking at the microbiome of koalas and how that impacts which species of eucalyptus or eucalypts they can eat. So they analyzed and altered microbes in koalas' guts. And the way that they did that is they actually caught wild koalas that ate only one kind of eucalyptus, kept them in temporary captivity, and then collected poo from radio-colored wild koalas that ate a completely different type of eucalyptus. They concentrated the microorganisms, packaged them into acid-resistant capsules, and gave them to the koalas, gave them some poo pills, some literal poo pills. They then found that fecal inoculations did in fact change the koalas' microbiomes. Shock and surprise. But this allowed them to eat that second kind of eucalyptus. So this could affect their ecology in a bunch of ways: nutrition, habitat selection, resource use. This is a proof of concept for the use of encapsulated fecal material to successfully introduce and establish new microbes into koala guts. So this can have impact a bunch of ways. One being that if a group of koalas are pushed into a new habitat, they could potentially be dosed with these capsules to allow them to eat the eucalyptus where they currently live. If they are taken in and treated for chlamydia and released back out into the wild, they could release them into a place that is safe for them and treat them when they're being treated for chlamydia, also for their microbiome, so that they have kind of a head start, that they have a wider ability of what to eat when they're released. Or they could just dose koalas all over Australia so that they're a little less picky. Because in any one area, there can be I think it's up to 100 species of eucalyptus. I don't remember exactly. There are so many species of eucalyptus. Yeah. At the San Francisco Zoo, for example, they'll give them 17 different species of eucalyptus at a time, and that will rotate around. And sometimes they'll eat one for a little while, and then they'll move over to another one, and then they'll move over to another one. If you think about captive management, this could also help if koalas are moving from one facility to another where they have different availability. In San Francisco, we are both blessed and cursed with the fact that there is invasive eucalyptus everywhere, but it makes it a lot easier to take care of koalas. At other zoos, they actually have to ship in eucalyptus to feed the koalas. They might have a different species.
So I have a question, two questions,
Yes.
several questions. So first of all, I'm taking the koalas. Then they took to the new diets as soon as they had these microbes that could facilitate eating them, or would it be they would try eating the other stuff and go, it's not working?
No, they are very picky. They know exactly what they should eat and what they should not eat when they're in the wild. But when they gave them, again, this is in captivity, they basically offered them this other kind of eucalyptus. So then it was the only option they had. The
follow-up question is, could this be of benefit to pandas to diversify their diet?
So this is within eucalyptus. So it is it's still a very small range. It's very similar type of plant. Bamboo is bamboo. If you're going to try to get them to eat something else besides bamboo.
But they go in search of different types of bamboo, like seasonally or something, or whether or not they're pregnant.
But in terms of microbiomes, the giant koala and the giant panda and the red panda share the same microbes, even though they live in very different areas and eat very different bamboos. So from that, I would assume that their microbiome actually is not really influencing that choice.
Well, they have a bunch in common, but it's not identical. So then my last question is, I know you don't like pandas because they're too picky of an eater and they're dying. And do you have this similar resentment towards koalas?
I sure don't, because they're still pretty good at doing what it takes to be a species that survives. They're actually, they can be very fast when they need to. They are very good at protecting their territory.
They're trying harder.
They can reproduce quite easily. They have a pouch, which helps them to raise their babies to a good size and stature. Yeah, they're pretty good at being animals, I would say.
Unlike the panda.
Right. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, I think this is all really interesting, especially because there is a very important role of this kind of fecal transfer for baby koalas. So baby koalas rely on the poo of their parents, of their mum, to be able to get the microbes that allow them to digest the food that they're going to eat as adults. And so they get like tied into these very particular trees and food types. And and then let's just give you some new poo so you can eat new trees.
Yeah. I would say that does make this pretty specific to koalas. So I do like that you mentioned that as well. Is that when they're babies, they're getting the seed bacteria from their mom. So they are a perfect poster child to start this with. There's still an opportunity potentially to help expand this, and it could help with captive management of various endangered species. It could help with releasing endangered species into new spaces if there's not if you want to release a particular subspecies of giraffe that's used to eating a very specific kind of acacia, and you want to release them into a place that is safe for them but doesn't have that specific kind of acacia, maybe you can seed their microbiome. There's lots of opportunities there.
So many. From poo, where do we go from here?
Oh my goodness, I'm so glad you asked. We're going to go jumping and falling right onto our face.
What?
That's how locusts do it anyway. So locusts are an example of an animal they're really good at jumping. They're really, really, really fast. They're really good at jumping to escape predators. So researchers, I absolutely love this, wanted to look at exactly the mechanics of how they are so good at jumping. And so they took some high-speed video and they found out that locusts can precisely control the movement of their hind legs. But when they land, it does not look quite so graceful. And I am hoping that Kiki can show us some video here. Yes. They plop right on their face.
Yeah, it's a little front heavy there.
So those of you that are very loyal audio listeners to the podcast, I would encourage you to go to twis.org/YouTube and look at this section of our show in video, because I've watched this on a loop for so many minutes. It's fascinating to me. They just plop right on their face. But why? So they took locusts in this study. They did this high-speed video, and then they did high-speed video of a dead locust and of a cold locust. Now, quote, "Cold locusts have only very limited control of their limb movements, very similar to a drunk person." So they wanted to see kind of how did they fall? Did they fall on their head? How good were they at getting back up and ready to jump again in these different states?
I bet the dead locust came in last.
Yeah, so I'm hoping Kiki could show that video too. It is so great. So the insects these locusts can rotate their body in midair. No matter how they were held before they were dropped in the lab, they always fell head first towards the ground and landed in such a way that they were pretty much prepped and ready to jump again almost immediately, the way that they crashed down after they hit their head first onto the ground. This creates what they consider predictable body posture. So this just makes it easier for them to reorient to jump again. If you know how you'll fall, you can prepare how to respond after initial impact. So with the cold locusts, they did a lot of uncontrolled flailing, kind of trying to right themselves. They still were able to get back up to a point where they could jump again pretty easily. The dead locusts, they just dropped aimlessly and they even bounced.
They were dead. They were dead. Fell.
But they all hit head first, which also means that is the energetically easiest way to fall.
It's the heaviest part of their body too, and so aerodynamically they would orient that way, right?
Yeah, so this is the passive role of the insect body when falling. So if they can know that and they can adjust exactly how they fall on their head, they're not expanding energy trying to move around as they fall. So a couple things about this. One is they're hoping that they can use this information to create better response in probes and drones and robots and how they respond to falling or landing or crashing. If you think even about the landers that we land on other planets, if you, instead of focusing, kind of the idea here is instead of focusing on a soft landing, focusing on maybe a harder landing, but predicting how that landing will go, padding that area because that's their situation, right? They have a exoskeleton that's really robust there on their head. Padding that area and being able to predict how that crash will happen and responding to impact instead of trying to engineer a soft, perfect landing is a different way of looking at it. And that's how nature does it in this case.
It's okay if I crash. I'll be fine.
Yeah, it's a controlled crash, right? That's exactly what this is. To say, instead of saying, I'm going to try to slow down and just barely boop, hit the ground, I'm going to drop this probe 1,000 times and know statistically exactly how it's going to smash when it lands. And then I can, beef up that area and put out, I don't know, like almost like kickstands to respond when it falls backwards from where it lands on.
Right.
So there's a new idea here and how to engineer that.
I love it. I'm thinking of that line from Toy Story when who's the space guy, the space toy?
Buzz Lightyear,
and he's like, I'm falling with style.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But the best style.
In this case with the locusts, it's falling without much style.
I think it's great style. They're like, I don't care about my head. It's just a ball of neurons. It's not even really a brain.
That wouldn't work for people quite the same way.
No, not without a really good helmet and neck support.
Yeah, well, we're going to keep doing this show with style. Yeah. That's right. Is it time for us to take a break?
It sure is.
All right, well, let's take a quick break. We will be back in just a few moments with more This Week in Science. I've got more brains, and Justin still has Mongolia. We'll be back with more twists.
We can explain things you've heard with more than intuition. A line breeze that shows the way to go. New conclusion. The methods of hypothesis and patience are the only things I need. Put on a pair of goggles and go looking for the things I couldn't see. The answers lie somewhere.
Thank you for listening to TWIS. If you would like to see and hear more of TWIS, well, you can go to twis.org and subscribe to our newsletter. That's right. If you go to twis.org, there is a pop-up screen which should get you the ability to subscribe to our newsletter with your email address and your name. And once a month, we will send you our newsletter that's full of extras from the TWIS team, little thoughts and noodlings and ideas. And it's just a fun little addition that we're doing. Beyond our newsletter, at our website, you can find ways to subscribe. The big orange subscribe button will get you to YouTube, iTunes, or Google Play. We are available other places, but those are the big three. So if that's where you want to subscribe, it's an easy way to find those links. Go to twis.org, click subscribe, and choose your platform. We are also on Facebook as well. You can also head over to our Zazzle store if you're interested in some of our merchandise. We have wonderful merchandise. We have shirts and tote bags and hats and calendars and all sorts of wonderful things with our logo and artwork from the wonderful Blair. She's working on a new calendar now, everybody. Isn't that exciting? A calendar for 2020 is coming. But if you want some of that art, you can have it on a keychain or on a mug or on a pillow. That's right. It could be yours. Zazzle.com. The link is at twis.org. Back at twis.org. Also, This Week in Science is an independently run podcast. We're not part of a podcast network. We are not owned by anybody else. It's just us, and we do this show on a weekly basis, and if you like what we do, We would really appreciate your support. If you are interested in supporting us, an easy way to do that is to click the donate button. It takes you to a PayPal interface. If PayPal is a way that you like to support podcasts, that could work. But Patreon is a wonderful community where you can choose the level of your support, click the red Become a Patron button, and everywhere from $3.14, cute, high support, all the way up to $50 a month, you can choose your level of support. You're charged once per month, and that support goes directly to us being able to do the show, buy new equipment, be able to do the show better. And this month, we're actually looking at an increase in some of our finances. Blair's computer's pretty much on its last legs. It keeps dying, and we need to get her a new computer. We're going to go in halvesies with her, but we need your help to be able to do that so that she has a strong enough machine to be able to handle the streaming and the video and possibly some video editing and audio editing and that kind of stuff. Also, her art. There's a lot of things there that computer would contribute to with respect to TWIS, and we would love your help being able to make that happen. Also, we're using StreamYard now to broadcast the show and to be able to get rid of the StreamYard branding and be able to add some other bells and whistles. That would be pretty awesome. We're going to have to subscribe to the amount of $20 a month. There have been some wonderful patrons who have already increased their levels of support. Thank you so much for doing that. But to be able to afford that additional $20 a month, it's not too much more, but it is that little tiny expense that does make a little bit of difference. If you can help out, it would be much appreciated. You know, we do this show week in and week out. And we do it for you. We do it for ourselves too, because it's pretty fun to talk about the science, and it gives me a little dopamine boost, and I get really happy on Wednesday nights when we do the show. But it really also, I love connecting with you. I love seeing people in the chat room. I love getting emails in messages throughout the week. I love seeing you on Twitter, Facebook, wherever it is that we connect. And I just really appreciate the fact that you are a part of TWIS. Couldn't do this without you. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you.
Can't explain things you've heard with more than intuition. A line of reason shows the way to go.
And we're back with more This Week in Science.
Oh yeah, we are back and we have more science for you. Oh my goodness. But first, it's time for This Week in What Has Science Done For Me Lately? This week, we have a letter from, let's see if I can get my my window to tell me the name. I can't read it.
Oh, it's Eric from Alaska.
Eric from Alaska. Thank you very much. Yes, Eric from Alaska. Eric and AK in the chat room. He writes in and says, "Hi, Kiki, Blair, and Justin. I have written 2 What Has Science Done For Me Lately stories. Previously, one was about an illness and the other was about a natural disaster. This one is not like them. This will be a happy one. The science and technology of telecommunications and shipping have allowed me to more fully enjoy my hobbies. I am a collector of stamps and of Boy Scout books. The sales and auction sites on the internet have allowed me to purchase items I would never have found any other way. I have found information that would have required a trip to an archive in a faraway country just a few years ago. I have also made hobby friends all over the world. I often repeat the old joke that there is a tiny difference between a hobby and a mental illness, but my hobbies have helped me in many ways over the years. When I am working on my hobbies, my mind is calm, I am engaged, and I am enjoying myself."
Nice.
So science has given me tools to make my enjoyment of hobbies better, and for that, I am grateful. Thanks, Eric. Yeah, science, making our hobbies more enjoyable.
I was just thinking, Indiana Jones's job would have been a lot easier after the internet. He spent a lot of time going to far off libraries and stuff.
Yeah. That's right. There is a certain amount of, and also the interlibrary loan. Those are always good,
Yes.
but they take a while. But having those documents available digitally through libraries,
Yeah.
amazing. The internet connects us. It's amazing. If you want to talk about the connectedness of the world because of science, or you want to send us a note or a sonnet or a little story, something telling us what science has done for you lately, send me an email, Kirsten@thisweekinscience.com, or send a message on Facebook. You can find us on Facebook, This Week in Science. All right, time for more science. Justin, what's your next story?
Underwater archaeology via the Maritime Archaeological Trust. They have just discovered an 8,000-year-old structure next to what is believed to be the oldest boat building site in the world on the Isle of Wight. This is Director of Maritime Archaeological Trust, Gary Momber. This new discovery is particularly important as the wooden platform is part of a site that doubles the amount of worked wood found in the UK from a period that lasted 5,500 years. The site lies east of Yarmouth. Yarmouth, if you are from the UK, you might not even know where that is. And the new platform is the most intact wooden Middle Stone Age structure ever found. Yes, this is Stone Age. Usually when we think of the Stone Age, we think the modern material of the day being the same as it ever was. Everything's just made out of stone. That's how we make things. We build them out of stone. But this is part of the Wood Age right here. So the site is 11 meters below sea level. There was during the period when there was human activity on site, it was a dry land, lush vegetation, and this is before the North Sea was fully formed, and the isle was actually still connected to mainland Europe. So this is sea levels were quite different. 11 meters, that's 33 feet. That's a big difference when it comes to sea level in just that 8,000 years. Site was first discovered in 2005. Contents and contains an arrangement of trimmed timbers that could have been platforms, walkways, or collapsed structures. Kind of difficult to interpret until the Maritime Archaeological Trust did some underwater archaeology. They went down, they took 3D models of landscape, and they began the excavation. Gary from previously, Momber continues, the site contains a wealth of evidence for technological skills that were not thought to have been developed for their couple thousand years. There were advanced woodworking skills on display. The site shows the value of marine archaeology for understanding the development of civilization, which is something I've said many times on the show before. That's where we have to discover the history of civilizations is underwater. Yet, being underwater, and this is something I hadn't thought about, there are no regulations that can protect the site. Therefore, it is down to our charity with the help of our donors to save it before it is lost forever. So it hasn't been fully removed yet. It's one of those. So again, this is one of those things. Again, I've talked about it a number of times on the show, but humans tend to live in coastal zones, right near the sea. We are the son of the son of the son of a fisherman, and the daughter of the daughter of the daughter of a fisherwoman as well, and the son of a daughter. Well,
Yeah.
And the sea level rise for a very kind of important technological transformative period of our history is now underwater. It's going to be out to sea. I'm glad that they found this site. It's an amazing discovery to find woodworking skills that predate by thousands of years, where we believed them to have been. And it's also one of those things, like if boats are also around earlier than we believed them to have been, it helps explain some of these strange leaps where people showed up. Yeah. And one of the things that's always tough about this versus any other technology that we possess is things made out of wood decay. So if we did have boats even many thousands of years before this, the likelihood of finding one preserved is very unlikely.
So we've had a space archaeologist on the show. I think we have to have a marine archaeologist. I don't think we've had that, at least in a while.
All right. We will put that into the little pot of the magic pot of names, ideas to pull out and create it. We will try and make that happen. I like it.
If you're a marine archaeologist listening, hit us up on Twitter.
Yeah, let us know. Yeah. Join us on the show. Be a little reckless.
Yeah.
Reckless? Why would somebody be reckless, Kiki?
Oh, reckless like a teenager with poor impulse control.
I feel like there's some science related to this.
There is some science coming at you right now. A paper published this week in Trends in Neurosciences looked at not recklessness necessarily, but impulsivity control in macaque monkeys and in humans. They compared adolescents of both species to adults of both species on a task that was basically like, here's this thing, don't look at it. And adults were much more able to not look at the thing that they weren't supposed to look at, whereas the teenagers or adolescents were like, I've got to look at it. And they were worse at being able to control or stop themselves from acting on the impulse. Now, anybody who knows teenagers just kind of go, well, this is just part of it. We know the prefrontal cortex is the last part of the brain to mature. This is the area involved in impulse control and decision making. And the researchers conclude from their study that since they found the same trend in macaque monkeys, which are distantly related to people, that this is an evolutionarily conserved trait that must have some kind of importance in our evolutionary history.
So it's being described as impulse control. I immediately thought that's just curiosity and having an imagination that can create the idea that that's something interesting enough to forget what somebody just told me to do. Whereas an adult is like, there's no secrets. I don't have an imagination. I'm not even curious. They told me to stare at a blank wall. I'm just gonna do that. Like I don't feel like that's a good impulse quotient.
To me, it sounds more like risk-taking behavior that I think it's part of normal human development. They talk about it as a benchmark in the cognitive development of children, is learning how to take risks. Taking risks is an important part of developing your brain, and then evaluating risk and adjusting whether or not you're going to take a risk based on how high the risk is. This is like a really important thing to learn as a human. It makes perfect sense to me that actually not just primates, a lot of animals, potentially all animals, would need to learn this when they are younger, when there's somebody looking out for them, or they have more safety nets to help them learn what is a risk worth taking. If you even just think about like the deer going out into the clearing, when is it a good time to go into the clearing? When is it worth it?
Right. And that's exactly the perspective that these authors take on this conclusion, on their interpretation of the results, that the risk taking is valuable because it leads to more learning experiences that would not take place if individuals were completely risk averse from, a very young age. So it's learning to control the impulse of risk taking, to control your ability to do something or not do something. Plenty of adults still have issues with their impulse control, but the decision making, that risk taking, the choosing to do something or not, being able to control it, and having the learning experiences that occur as a result of that process is valuable to your survival as an adult.
Yeah, that's
And
why
so
like doing stupid
basic-
stuff when you're a teenager is really important, actually,
Well,
and getting
it is-
hurt
it is-
and
It is to a degree. It's like
Yeah.
if you kill yourself, you've taken yourself out of the gene pool.
Right.
It's not working. It's all within limits, right?
Yes. it's you have to learn
risk-taking
fire is
with-
hot. There's this level.
You can't just go, somebody told me fire's hot, and then that's how you live your life.
So
Okay.
this puts impulse control in a strange category, though, because in a way, it's putting impulse control in a thing that's an ability to override a thing that is in your best interest, which is like the deer.
I don't think impulses are always in your best interest.
No,
No.
but in this case,
No.
if the impulse is to learn, is to take that chance to learn something new, to see the thing, to
But there's a certain point where maybe you haven't learned everything, but you've learned enough lessons that you know how to
think you
react
do.
to things.
You think you know.
You
I
think
know
you
now.
know how to better respond to situations, and you don't need to just try something. You don't need to do the risky thing. Yeah. But anyway, they're thinking it's evolutionarily beneficial to be impulsive when you're young.
Makes
I
perfect
like-
sense to me.
Yeah. Anyway, Justin, tell me another story.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so the last story I brought is now Mongolia.
All right, Justin bought Mongolia. I forgot.
I bought
That's right.
Mongolia. Yeah. So again, we're going to the Stone Age, right? Where the modern material is the same as it ever was. Once again, and they found in the Stone Age in Mongolia Stone Age tools. Okay, I know you're thinking that's what you would expect. Except these are 45,000-year-old stone tools and the Eurasian steppes. That's about 10,000 years earlier than archaeologists previously believed that people were in this region. So it's a big pushback. It also then creates a new point of possible encounter and contact with Denisovans. Because they were still there in that time. So this is Nicholas Zvins, associate professor of anthropology, lead author of the study. He led the excavations between 2011 2016 at the Tolbor 16 site along the Tolbor River in northern Hengai Mountains between Siberia and Mongolia. They yielded stone artifacts. 126 of them were associated with the oldest human occupation site there. There was long, regular blades, tools that resemble those found at other sites throughout Siberia, northwest China, including a large scale dispersal of humans across this region. So there was, and they were well crafted too. It was one of the interesting things that they sort of pointed out is that was as if there was a very systematic way in the similarity of all of these tools that they were being created. So there was a large group of humans that shared a very significant technological, cultural background, and it wasn't, these weren't disparate groups throughout the region. So they found no human remains at the site. They have the tools. So there's even maybe a slight possibility that these are not from humans. Well, okay, wait. The age of the site determined by the luminescence dating on sediment, radiocarbon dating of animal bones found near these tools. Is that 10,000 years earlier than the fossil of a human skull cap from Mongolia, and roughly 15,000 years after modern humans left Africa. So apparently this was the first stop. People left Africa on one of the migrations out. Now we kind of seem to know that there's been more than one, and there has been some talk of there was I think it was the Nat Geo Genome Project that found a Mongolian man that was like the most related to the most people in the world. Like
Right. Yes.
So there is this sort of unique position for the Mongolian people there as well. And this is Quotey Voice from Zwins. Although we don't know Yet where the meeting happened, it seems that the Denisovans passed along genes that would later help Homo sapiens settling down in high altitudes and to survive hypoxia on the Tibetan plateau. From this point of view, the site of Tulbar 16 is an important archaeological link connecting Siberia with northwest China on a route where Homo sapiens had multiple possibilities to meet local populations such as Denisovans. So
That's cool. So that's maybe where along the way we ran into the Denisovans, intermingled, and continued our migration around the planet. Huh.
And again, this we find a 45,000-year-old site like this because it's on the Tibetan, or excuse me, on the Mongolian plateaus, right? It's on land. This is not where most of the people were back then. They were coastal, and that coastal is now underwater. That's why we need the underwater archaeologists to join our show.
There's so much to learn along these coastlines. Oh my gosh. So much being lost, so much to learn. Learning though, so there's this idea, the 10,000 hours of practice and you're an expert. You're going to know how to do something. There's a study that came out back in the early 90s by a group, Ericsson, Krampe, and Tesch-Römer. I can't say the name correctly, but this was a psychological review study, which is a study that so many people have cited and used as evidence for things they're doing. This study looked at, back in the 90s, looked at violinists and this thing called deliberate practice. How much do you have to practice to be really good at something? And they found there was a direct correlation. People who didn't practice very much, they weren't good. And then if between people who were considered good violinists and expert violinists, there was a difference in this study. The more you practiced, the better you were. Now, in the study, they had a delineation between this deliberate practice and teacher-designed practice. And the research, there were a few questions around this that led some new researchers, Brooke McNamara and Megan Matra, to repeat the study, but with a few of what they think are improvements, like one, employing a real double-blind procedure so that nobody knew what group they were in for the analysis, conducting analyses better suited to the study, they say, and testing previously unanswered questions about teacher-designed practice. That they examined the way Ericsson et al. Operationalized deliberate practice, that's practice by themselves, and their theoretical but previously unmeasured definition of deliberate practice that was teacher-designed practice. And they compared them. And so they, in the end, did not replicate the finding of this seminal study from the 90s that everybody has been like, just practice. Practice is the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely say, as someone who spent a lot of time in bands, there are people who just, you put the instrument in their hands and they have an inherent skill.
Yes.
It's a thing. I mean, especially if you think about improvisation and stuff like that, you have an ear. Some people have an ear for it.
Yeah. And so whereas this early 90s study democratized abilities, and basically people used it to say, just the more you practice, if you practice makes perfect. The more you practice, you're going to do it. All it is practice. It doesn't have to do with anything else. This study, by making the changes that it did to the methodology, they were able to delineate that there actually is a difference between the expert, really good violinists and the good violinists, and it's not just practice. In fact, they found the very, very best violinists practiced less than the others.
Yeah, all the prodigies in my bands, I would ask them, God, how much do you practice? They're like, I don't know, like maybe once a week for an hour.
Yeah. And so there is...
Show up and do that.
This study did not look at genes or anything to do with inherent ability, but by reanalyzing, by reworking the study, they do have a very not definitive, but there is a line to this idea that there is genetic and inherent ability involved in at least that complete expert level of ability, where people are elite athletes, elite musicians. There is something to the idea that there is genetic superiority in some domains.
So to throw this a little bit into this too, if you're designing a study, and they didn't realize this study was going to be this big when they started, of course, they had no idea this many people would pay attention and be like, this is how you do it based on this one study. Everybody must practice 10,000 hours. But when you're conducting a study, remember that it might become important in the future, and people might look back on it. And so just make sure you've really got it ratcheted down, what your definitions are, what the parameters are, and that you do it there. There was some story I heard today that Mendel had a pea study.
Peas, yes.
With the peas, that the peas may have been more influenced by the gardeners who knew what he was looking for than anything else, because something didn't show up in his study, which was a crossover of genes. He got one or the other of the pea, but there was never evidence of a crossover, which when you repeat the experiment, you always see. So people, you put this document out there, it's forever, because if it becomes important, if anybody starts to really look at it and thinks it's important, it will get looked at. And so, just be careful when you're designing your experiment.
Well, I mean, all of the band teachers out there really have to rethink their pep talk now.
Oh, they know.
I certainly got this one plenty of times. Like, it doesn't matter if you.
Well, it does. The bottom line is, even though there was this less practice result for the elite, the really good violinists in this study, the difference between everybody else was based on practice. So if you're just an average person, want to learn an instrument, you're not going to learn it if you don't practice.
Right.
And things take practice, and you will improve with practice. But maybe what this study is saying is that you might not end up, right? You could, there's all sorts of things. So practice. Practice.
I have according to 23andMe.
I don't want to put people down. So
no, it's true. I mean, you can get to be really, really good just with practice.
With practice. Yeah.
But you still might not get first chair because somebody else has some innate talent.
I have a gene, according to 23andMe, that I share with the elite of the elite athletes. And this gene gives elite athletes about a 3% advantage over other elite athletes without this gene, which makes me 3% more athletic than a couch potato, because I haven't done the other 100% of work that the elite athletes have done who don't have this gene. There is no free ride, even within the genetics. You still have to participate in the world. Yeah.
You have to participate. That's right. It's a participant's world. I have a whole bunch of really quick stories. Can I run through them?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to run through my quick stories. This one's for you, Blair. Spiders.
Spiders.
So, my first story of the quick stories for the end of the show. Apparently, according to some researchers from UC Davis and UC Santa Barbara, these guys went following spiders in 2018 after the hurricane season. They were looking at a particular type of spider, Anelosimus studiosus. This is what's known as a comb-footed spider, and it's known for exhibiting aggressive or docile behavior. These are colonial spiders, and sometimes the whole colony is aggressive or the whole colony is docile. And these traits get passed down from one generation to the next. So if aggressiveness becomes part of that generation, then the next generation is going to be aggressive. They followed the hurricanes from the 2018 hurricane season and the spiders and looked to see who survived. It turned out that the more aggressive spider colonies were the spiders to survive. Nobody knows why, but that's just the way it worked out. The docile spiders didn't do well after the hurricanes. So now they have to find out exactly why. And
no.
their methodology is pretty awesome. They take
Wait a
an
second.
electric toothbrush and they go vibrate the web of the spiders with electric toothbrushes and then wait to see which spiders come running out. And the ones that come running out, they label aggressive.
That makes sense. Yeah. But also now there's going to be predominantly aggressive spiders in these hurricane areas.
Yeah, for a while until it
Tight.
goes
Okay.
away for whatever reason. Yeah. Yep. So aggressive spiders becoming more aggressive, colonial spiders becoming more aggressive, just what we wanted, right?
Cool.
Yeah, this story was sent in by Artyom, and in case you hadn't heard, there have been a few tests of various Ebola treatments, and we know that Ebola has been ongoing in the Congo and other regions of Africa. This is a huge human health concern. There's a vaccine that does seem to work, but if you haven't been vaccinated, what do you do with the people who've been treated? So they've been looking at monoclonal antibodies of a couple of different treatments, and all of the trials are looking really good. So they're taking the mortality rate from Ebola down from about 75% chance of death if you get Ebola, down to about 40%. Or possibly even 20-ish, depending on how soon people come in after they start showing symptoms.
So market improvement.
It's a big improvement. It's not a cure, and you might hear people talking about it's a cure, but it's not a total cure. But this will save a lot of lives.
I would take those odds for sure.
Yeah, and the big issue now is just getting people to come into the clinics, because that is something, and to get treated, because there's a lot of distrust in the medical institutions. Another study out of the LIGO and Virgo arrays looking for gravitational waves have detected a black hole swallowing a neutron star, and this was pretty much the trifecta that astrophysicists were looking for. We had a black hole running into a black hole, we had a neutron star running into a neutron star, and now they have detected a black hole devouring a neutron star. They're confirming all of their measurements and results, but this is going to be giving astrophysicists some really wonderful information about these massive objects in our universe. Very exciting. Yeah. And my final study has to do with the brain, because it's super brainy night for me. Neuroscientists looking at an area of the brain called the hippocampus, which is my favorite because it lets me remember stuff. It lets you remember stuff too. The hippocampus is responsible for the consolidation of your memories. It puts them places. And we've known that there was this signal. It's called the sharp wave ripple in the hippocampus when information starts being stored. And they have just detected this sharp wave ripple in the hippocampus 1 to 2 seconds before a memory is actively recalled by a subject. So now they're wondering if this is part of the memory trace, if this is part of the brain accessing its distributed memories when they are being recalled. But we don't know. They don't really know. All they know is that there's this sharp
there again.
There's sharp wave ripple 1 to 2 seconds before memory recall, and that's all they know. They don't actually know that. They don't know if it's connected to anything at all, really. So yeah.
So
anyway,
isn't that 1 to 2 seconds though? Isn't that a while?
that's
I mean, is that a tough memory?
That is a very long time period. when it comes to stuff in the brain, because there are lots of brain signals, various frequencies that
constantly firing.
and you know that you're looking for a particular signal that's going to happen at a particular time, and there are different waves that can be detected milliseconds before things that are very important for various brain functions, for brain activities. But
quick question,
yeah.
Blair, right now, where are your keys? 1,000. 2.
They're on the key hook.
Oh, well, maybe that is how long it takes to remember. Maybe actually that would seem okay. I got it.
I'm tired.
Yeah. I love the introduction to the abstract on this science article, though, for this. In the abstract, they say, perhaps the most glaring unknown is the relationship between SWRs, sharp wave ripples, and conscious cognition. We still do not know what cognitive process, if any, is linked to the emergence of SWRs. To put it simply, we still do not know what an animal thinks about, if anything, when the hippocampus elicits a ripple.
Well, so there is a weird thing there that I think that they might be mentioning, which is the conscious self of us running around with the brain firing constantly going, hey, I want to access something specific that I'm not thinking about right now. Go find it. It's like a little search browser that you open up and be like, yeah, remind me about how this works. And now the brain's got to go like, you weren't talking about a completely different subject.
Now I've got to go to the librarian. Yeah.
Now you got the card catalog and the microfiche. We'll find it. Just give me just give me a second.
Give me a second.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yep. It is interesting. Blair, do you have a last story?
Yes. Speaking of finding things, a serendipitous discovery by some marine biologists from the American Museum of Natural History found a school of thousands of flashlight fish while scuba diving off of the Solomon Islands. Only around 25% of the world's fish species school. And as far as we knew, because these schools disperse at depths with critically low light, it required ambient light. But this is the first time ever bioluminescent flashes were observed to coordinate movement and facilitate schooling behavior in complete darkness. So this is a brand new discovery, could completely change the way we think animals behave in the aphotic zone, and reveals a completely new function of bioluminescence.
Ooh, coordinating activity. I'll flash over here. Yep, I'm going to catch up. Wow, it's like fish Burning Man. Make sure you have your blinky lights before you go out on your bicycles.
There you go.
Burners at night.
I can only imagine.
Yes. It is almost, there's my show notes. It is almost Burning Man for those burners out there. May you all enjoy your next week in the dust. We have come to the end of our show. We've done it. Come to the end, and I would love to say thank you. So, thank you. Thank you for joining us for this episode of This Week in Science. Thank you to some particular people for making this show a little bit easier to do. Thank you to Identity 4 for recording our audio for our podcast. Thank you to Gord McLeod for helping to manage the chat room, our web chat, our Freenode, web chat Freenode chat room. It's #TWIS if anyone's interested in joining that. And thank you to Fada for every week helping with social media, with show notes, and with the YouTube chat room. And thank you to our Patreon sponsors. Thank you, Paul Disney, Andrew Swanson, Richard Onemus, Ed, Andrew Groh, Stu Pollock, Philip Shane, Ken Hayes, Harrison Prather, Charlene Henry, Joshua Fury, Steve DeBell, Alex Wilson, Tony Steele, Craig Landon, Mark Mazzaros, Jack, Matthew Litwin, Jason Roberts, Bill K, Bob Calder, Time Jumper 319, Eric Knapp, Richard, Brian Condren, Dave Neighbor, Matt Bass, Darwin Hannon, Patrick Pecoraro, Ben Bignell, Jean Tellier, John Gridley, David Williams, Corinne Benton, Anna LaJoy, Sarah Chavis, Rodney, Tiffany Boyd, John Bertram, Mountain Sloth, Seth O'Gradney, Stefan Albaran, John Ratnaswamy, Dave Friedel, Gerald Myshak, Paul Ronovich, Sue Doster, Dave Wilkinson, Richard Porter, Noodles, Kevin Reardon, Christoph Zucknerek, Ashish Pants, Ulysses Adkins, Artyom, Rick Ramus, Paul, John McKee, Jason Olds, Brian Carrington, Christopher Dreyer, Lisa Suzuki, Jim DePro, Greg Riley, Sean Lamb, Steve Leisman, Kurt Larson, Rudy Garcia, Marjorie Gary S., Robert Greg Briggs, Brendan Minish, Christopher Rappin, Flying Out, Aaron Luthen, Matt Sutter, Mark Hessenflow, Kevin Parachan, Byron Lee, and EO. Thank you for all of your support on Patreon. And if you are interested in helping us out, helping us to meet our financial responsibilities for this show, you can find information at patreon.com/thisweekinscience, or just click the Patreon link at TWIS.org. And remember, this show grows when you recommend us to your friends. On next week's show, we will be back broadcasting live online again at 8 p.m. Pacific time on twist.org/live, where you can watch and join our chat room. We have a guest next week. Dr. Rochelle Tanner will be joining us to talk about nudibranchs and climate change and all sorts of oceany things. I'm very excited about that. Blair has made this connection for us. I'm so glad that she has. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you can't make it, though, don't worry. This is a podcast. You can listen to it when you find it, when we come to your phone or your device, whatever it is. We're a podcast. We're also on YouTube. You can find us, twist.org.
Thank you for enjoying the show. Twist, if you wherever you found us this time, you can come back to this place, or you can go to any of the places that Kiki described and find us that way.
For more information on anything you've heard here today, for example, some videos of those locusts falling on their faces, show notes will be available on our website. That's at www.twist.org. And while you're there, you can also make comments and start conversations with the hosts or other listeners.
Or you can contact us directly. Email Kirsten at thisweekinscience.com, Justin at twistminion@gmail.com, or Blair at blairbaz@twist.org. Just be sure to put TWIS, TWIS, somewhere in the subject line. Otherwise, Blair, what will happen?
You'll be spam filtered into oblivion.
You can also hit us up on the Twitter, where we are at TWIS Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there is a story you would like us to cover or address, a suggestion for an interview, a haiku that comes to you in the night, please let us know.
We'll be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for more great science news.
And if you've learned anything from the show, remember, try not to forget. Keep present in your mind at all times, whenever possible.
It's all in your head.
This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth. And I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just yet understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. 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 And this week in science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say. And if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got a laundry list of items I want to address. From stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. So how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say. And if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.
This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This is the after show. This is where we talk about other things that don't go in the show, like I was talking about in the chat room. Oh yeah, hot manual Windows update. I did it. I just rebooted the whole thing.
See, this is why I'm really having a tough time even considering skipping as my only computer in the house, moving to a Windows from my Mac. Because my Mac asks me before it does these things. Lets me defer.
Yeah, I mean...
It works on old versions.
No, very often. So the Windows, it does let you defer. You can... I mean, it does decide it wants to update stuff, but you can check things so that it doesn't do it all the time without you wanting to. Mm-hmm. And different programs, you can tell it when you want them to update and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't know why. So like 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, I had my machine. I did a clean reinstall of Windows to try and get rid of some of my glitchy issues. And this is the one that's remaining. And I don't know. I don't know. What's the issue? I think it's a driver issue. I think it's a driver issue with my Focusrite. Where I drop, where my my machine freezes, and then it drops my mic connection to StreamYard. Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's a driver issue, but I'm not sure. It is just this one. It's just this little thing, and I don't know what to do.
Having trouble counting for some reason.
Everything else works really great, other than the fact that suddenly in the middle of the show, I'm like Kiki's frozen again. I need to figure it out because it's not okay.
Interesting. Just hella wrong. Okay.
Less normal friendly even with the new... Yeah, I know. It's not Windows is not normal friendly. You really need to be an expert in so many things to have a Windows machine. And I went I went Apple for a very long time. And so now this is just, I'm like, I don't remember. I haven't done this in a long time. I don't like it.
Now, if Apple could just not be a jerk about recognizing that they have a monopoly on certain functionalities and not way overprice all of their
Do you
items
not understand the business
and make
model
them
of Apple?
and
We're
stop
just
making them all a plug that no one else has.
This is exactly.
No.
This is that. Okay.
Oh, guess
That's
what? Our
not
new
for nothing.
phones don't even have headphone jacks in
Right.
them. Really, guys?
It's not for nothing. It's not.
That is, I have to say, that is without a doubt like the largest, like, I felt personally betrayed when they took away
The
ports
headphone
on their
jack.
machines. The headphone jack and also just like USB jacks on their laptops.
Okay,
That's so
How
messed
about Ethernet?
up.
We
Well,
gotta get
there's
so small you
Ethernet.
can't even
but-
have Ethernet.
But there's a reason for it, which is that it extends battery life. Apparently,
Mhm.
just having the jack there is a battery drain. I guess just you're gonna have the next iPhone that you purchase will likely have Bluetooth headphones, and it won't even be a.
I don't
already
want
do.
the zombie headphones. I
They
don't
already-
want them.
That's but that's and then they were mocked relentlessly by the one of the Android phone maker peoples, and now their next phone's not going to have it for the exact same reason.
Identity 4, I agree with you there. Be able to plug in a thumb drive and power at the same time.
How
Yes.
It's so dumb.
I don't know. A lot of people are happy though about the new
Yeah.
Thunderbolt, but it's
Very-
just people think that it's going to get adopted across the board, that that not just Apple will have the Thunderbolt, that everyone's going to have Thunderbolt. And if everyone has Thunderbolt, then that makes it easy because everybody is the same thing, and that's awesome.
So
and then it's just like, oh, I have this USB-C Thunderbolt thingy also. We could do that. Okay, great.
So it's one of
Trade.
those weird things where technology comes along and there is a new standard and it replaces the old standard.
Mhm.
But I have a
Every
feeling
month.
if we're talking about maybe now, maybe a few years from now, I don't know exactly when it's going to take place, when we can actually state that this is true. But there will be more records in circulation than CDs. There's an appeal to the vintage record, and the CD is quickly disappearing from the history of technology.
Yeah.
So we get to these weird pivot points where this is the thing that's now, this is the digital revolution of the CD, and it became obsolete insanely like overnight.
I'm actually really sad that my laptop is dying. The number one reason I'm sad about it is that it has a CD DVD drive.
Yeah.
And I would get books on tape from the library
Yeah.
and I'd put them in my iTunes, and
Yeah.
I'm not burning a million copies for my friends. I'm just listening to it myself. It's not a big
But
deal.
now you can just do it through the app.
But
you
they
can
don't have
do it.
everything on the app that they have at the library.
They
They
should.
do, but you have to go to 7 different sites and create subscriptions. And
Yeah, exactly.
which
my
is
library has an app, but they don't have all books on the app. And
which
you
is
can get,
like an unfortunate future that we are drifting into, which is all medias are going to be through exclusive things, and they won't be able to they won't be able to charge a lot each because they won't have enough content for you to sign up for them and everything else. So there's this weird sort of dynamic. It's almost an ecosystem of streamlined media in different locations that you have to. I miss being able to, even though it was annoying that you had to sit on your couch at a certain time at a certain place and watch a TV show. At least you had access to the content.
Yes.
Now it's like,
Yep.
oh, wait, what is this thing you're talking about? Oh, that's the one subscription I don't have. Is
Yes,
it worth
exactly.
doing that one show? I don't know.
Eric in Alaska is saying his favorite tech history story is the Pioneer mission to Jupiter. They stored the data in 4 different formats: punch cards, paper tape, 7-track tape, and 9-track tape. Which of these are still readable?
Yeah.
I'm gonna bet that the
Paper cop.
I bet punch cards.
Yeah, the punch card. That's
punch
what I was
cards
gonna
are
say.
still. But I'm good. I think magnetic tape. It's one of the. It's actually a very good
But
storage.
Does it store as well?
technology.
I don't know.
I thought it did.
I don't know.
I mean, but the thing is, how many of us have
you ever tried to
devices
find an old
read them?
cassette? Have
Right.
you ever tried to find an old cassette?
Do I
And you're
have a
like,
9-track tape player?
Oh,
no.
is that what like the old audio cassettes are? It's called 9-track.
No, that's something
No,
different.
that's something
I
else.
love the disconnect. Like the cassette is even a foreign thing to you.
No,
Blair.
I still have cassette tapes. I still have a Walkman, but I didn't know
Wow.
if it had a name. I just wasn't sure if that's what that meant. But
My dad had an 8-track when I was growing up. That was
I remember that.
In
I
his
actually
GMC pickup truck.
Yeah. So I'm old enough to remember, again, somebody older that still had that in a vehicle. And actually, they were kind of cool. They were cassettes. They were like this big cassette, and you just pushed it into the thing, and you could play off of it.
Oh, the 9-track is like it looks like what was in the camcorders that were like a little bit. I'm looking them up on Google right now.
What's
they look
a camcorder?
Ha ha ha.
Like even that. Like
Oh no. The original audio cassette is called 9-track. Like that's that's what those are called.
That is.
Right.
See, that wasn't a dumb question.
Well, I didn't think it was a dumb question. I thought it was a dumb answer, but it
Because
turned out
you could
to be
record
correct.
9 tracks on it.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, I have some books on tape that are still on cassette tape, and I've sometimes play them on my old Walkman, but they're starting to sound like
Oh no, they're getting warbly.
They are not. They do not
they're
stand
not
the test
aging
of
well.
time.
No.
Yeah, I'm going
Justin
with the
Parks. Justin Parks in the YouTube chat room says this was his first time watching. Loved it. Look forward to more shows in the future. Thanks for watching, Justin. Hope you join us again. That's awesome.
great name, by the way. Awesome.
Yeah, it's a great name. Yeah.
There's also weird technology gaps that I think are interesting. The fact that we were broadcasting through the air first, and then we put stuff up into space, and people started getting satellite dishes.
Right.
And then at some point, we realized the most efficient way to do anything is just to run a cable from house to house to house to house to house to house. Like that's like the lowest tech version of transferring information is having a cable connecting everything. And we were in the atmosphere and then beaming stuff down from space and bouncing signals before we just figured out, it's easier to just run a line. And now we have like the Wi-Fi, which the device is now we're through the air again. It's this, it kind of reminds me of the braided stream of the brain. We were talking about earlier. It's like, the thing that seems like the logical or the more advanced thing or what have you, it might not be. It keeps changing.
So Identity 4 is asking about the click again, Justin.
Is it back?
It was in
there.
the show. Yeah.
It wasn't consistent throughout the show, though. It was like in a couple of, it was a lot in a couple of spots.
Interesting. So there was, for those who were following the technological problems of Justin's audio, there is another computer in the house. I did hook that up before the show, well before the show. And there was not even the icon, the little like speaker icon in the Windows. And the thing that was weird about it is that computer hadn't been used for, I think it said 2016 was the last Windows update. And I could not hit a button or figure out a button to make it update even. It was just, and it wouldn't play any audio through anything but the monitor speakers.
Wow. Okay.
It was like missing. Like when I go into the audio here on this computer, it has all these options. None of those were available on this thing. So, but what's interesting is all the cables did get removed and rearranged. So there's cables further away from power sources, all that sort of thing. So the idea that it could still be that audio card, I'm liking.
Somebody else mentioned during the show they think it might be the mixer.
Mixer? I don't know if it is the mixer.
It could be. One of the interesting things too, though,
update your audio drivers.
Was when we started off. Remember last week I was too loud, and so we turned down the mixer. This time, with all the cables reattached, same computer.
It sounds great.
The audio was terrible. The audio levels were low. And so I had to put the mixer back to where it was before. So it is a weird interaction having a mixer in the first place. I think the real ultimate solution of this at some point is to not have the mixer involved. And maybe it's a new mic or a different mic or a different way.
Is that why you have the mixer? Does it have one of the pegged plugs?
Yes. That is at this point the only reason that the mixer is in this loop is because this is a professional microphone for a studio type situation. And it hangs down from up above and looks oldie style Elvisy rockabilly, which is also why I love it. But it might be that that's just not the right thing, and that should also be tried. Somewhere there should be
A blue snowball.
That's somewhere. I have no idea. So that is though a thing that we could try. Again, part of the problem.
Do you have an external sound card, like
No.
like a Focusrite or anything? You just go.
I don't know it. No.
That goes between the mixer and the computer.
No, I don't have anything like that.
No.
What's also interesting is once I got this computer combobulated as the one that was going to be for the show. I did something I don't normally do on this computer, and I played a bunch of audio, and I never heard the click. Presumably, that audio is still taking the same path. So it's another layer of if it's audio card, it should just be repeating this glitch. But it seems then to be maybe localized to something else. Well, I'm not utilizing the microphone. So that is part of the pathway. So the audio does route through
the mixer
to the computer and back again to the headphones. But
how do you have a driver for the mixer? Have you updated the drivers?
Huh?
Have you updated?
Oh, what? I got to be some sort of Microsoft expert all of a sudden just uses this device. I get what you're saying now. I totally understand. Like you have to take on this whole hobby of having a computer.
So Identity 4 was just wondering the same thing I was. I'm pretty sure, since I have the same mixer that you have, that there are multiple microphone plug-in input spots.
There's 8 of them.
Yes. What if you just tried a different one?
Yeah, but that requires unplugging and replugging. You know, like at this end of the day, is it even worth it? Okay. No, fair point. Maybe try a different channel. No, that's a fair point. Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
Oh my god.
I think I had an issue like that once upon a time, and I updated drivers, and it fixed it.
I like that idea too. I don't know how to do it, but I totally love the idea.
Other question is any of this stuff plugged into a power strip with other items?
But it just started. I mean, that's fine. But
I think so. If I can say, the sound to me sounds way better since we moved to StreamYard. And I'm just thinking it's picking something up that's been pushed through this whole time, but it's subtle, and so it wasn't showing up in Google Hangouts. It's just my guess, because
maybe my jaw clicks when I talk.
Because it really was. We had never heard it before, and we heard it our very first night on StreamYard.
Yeah. No, we did hear it, but no, that's not quite accurate. We heard it, I think, the 2 weeks before.
Really? I don't remember.
Yeah, it had shown up. It had shown up right before we made the switch. I had actually slightly pegged it to perhaps being plugged into the wrong spot or something like this, because the speakers had been disconnected and reconnected. But I don't think that's it now either. So, it's finicky, this problem. I know it would solve it, though. Turning off the computer. That way it would stop making new sounds.
It's true. Yeah. But it would stop making all sounds.
Well, yeah, that's the other part of it. But I think that's going to be my next step is just try doing the show without the computer.
Identity 4 thinks it's a broken preamp. I don't know what that is.
That's the mixer. It's
Oh,
also
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could be. I also don't know that I've turned it off since it's been part of the loop. I think it stays on all the time.
You don't turn it off?
Oh.
Yeah. They noticed, to no surprise of any of us listening, that the dark feathers got hotter than the lighter colored feathers. Thanks. I love hearing my own voice.
Randomly too. This is because I live in a place where we are rebroadcast on local radio.
Have you heard it?
Sometimes I get in my car, I start my car, and we're talking at me. It's the weirdest feeling. It is the weirdest thing. Yeah.
Every once in a while, I'll show up at my parents' house and they'll be playing the show on some speakers, like while they're cooking in the kitchen.
Nice.
And I'm like, turn it off!
It is a weird thing to hear your own voice coming from outside of your skull. It's not the same thing.
It is not the same thing. No.
Did you see this sass that Identity 4 threw at you in the chat room, Justin?
Oh, wait, hang on.
He goes, hey, maybe that's why the preamp for the mic input is dead. Turn off your gear, dude.
Well, I didn't know you were supposed to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought you were just like the refrigerator. You just keep it on, otherwise the food goes bad.
No. Also, like you're using a huge amount of electricity by having it on.
Huge.
Yeah, Gaurav Sharma at the YouTube chat is asking, why do humans hate the sound of their own voice? Any scientific research done on it? And I think it's that it doesn't sound exactly the same as how your voice sounds inside your head.
Yeah.
Because it's really close. It's resonating inside your skull, and you're hearing it inside of yourself and from outside of yourself. So there's like this weird feedback loop that's involved also. And then when you listen to yourself recorded, you hear frequencies that you don't hear when you're talking. You hear aspects of your voice that you didn't know were there necessarily. And yeah.
Interesting. I hadn't
It's
really
kind of
thought
that
of it this way,
uncanny
but-
valley, maybe.
Well, but there's also this weird thing that it evokes, that there is somebody slightly imperfectly impersonating you.
I've heard my own voice and not
enough to
recognized
freak
it
you out.
before. Yeah.
Oh, but that's what happens when the show comes on and they've changed days, or that sounds very familiar. Oh, it's me. And it's also a weird thing because it's my internal voice is suddenly outside saying stuff at me, and totally out of context too. And so you immediately try to pay attention to what you're saying because
What?
it's your internal
That voice
voice.
sounds
It's like,
familiar. I
why
should
am I
listen to
thinking
it.
about this? Oh, that's me talking about something completely different. Okay. Also, you're always sexier and more handsome or more gorgeous in your own head than when you hear yourself.
I don't actually. I mean, I think you sound better for sure in your own head.
That's what I mean. That's what
But-
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think
what I'm talking
I think I sound way better than when I actually go back and
Yeah.
listen to stuff. And then I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I need to do that differently. I try and drop my voice, make it deeper. No,
Yeah.
I don't. It's good. I want everyone in the chat right now to know the conversation that is going to be going on over the next little while to figure out what TWIS is going to do for our 20th anniversary next year. 2020 is the 20th anniversary of This Week in Science. So we have to figure out, maybe I don't remember exactly when we started. Maybe it was in the fall. I don't remember exactly. We have to figure that out, see what kind of time we have to plan. But there's also, I believe, our 800th episode will be coming up next year.
Wait, I thought we started, or you started this in 99.
Ish.
Okay. I'm just saying. Wait, did we already pass it?
There's a certain amount of what year
Oh,
did that
did
happen?
we okay, now I get it. We missed the 20. Okay, I ruined everything.
What does our Wikipedia say?
No, our Wikipedia says, and I think I recorded. I thought it was 99 for a while, and maybe that's when Ted and I started talking about it.
Okay.
Or maybe we did some test episodes, but I have a cassette tape, speaking of cassette tapes, with number 1 written on it. And I think it has the date of the show also.
Our
so I can look at that.
Wikipedia, just so you know,
says 2000.
June 2000.
Great. Thanks, Wikipedia.
Oh, we got plenty of time now.
So I don't know how accurate that is, but...
You know what? We're just going to make up a date and call it the 20th anniversary, and who cares?
Who cares? I mean, we could give ourselves, it could be June that we celebrate the 20th anniversary. We could also combine it with our 800th podcast. That was my air quotes. 800th podcast episode.
Which, if you add up the hours, still doesn't make us experts at doing this show.
No.
This is how hard that 10,000 mark was.
10,000
It was a ridiculously unattainable thing.
We need so many hours of Well, consider, more recently, since podcasting, the shows are longer.
I love how you say more recently, and it's
still
been,
like 10 years ago.
No, it's been more than that. It's been for like 15 years. It's been like most of the show. It's been with that. You're still thinking back to this narrow window when we had like a hard out because there was a DJ coming in. Who, if they didn't sleep in, they were there on time. But yeah, no, this has been the show. It's been like the whole time.
I know.
We were, by the way, not many people realize this. We were the first podcast.
No, we weren't.
In a science category.
The first science podcast. Yes. 2005 was a big year, though, because I think that's when Science Friday started podcasting, and
they showed up
are
years
super
later.
close.
They showed up years later. Yeah, they were later.
And then there was Big Picture Science. They were podcasting under a different name, starting in 2005. Also,
well,
so
they started as Little Picture Science. Yeah.
Right. No, it was. We're not. Are we alone or? Something, I don't remember the name of the podcast right now, but they started as 2005 was the year that a lot of people got their start. But I think we were in there first. At least we're in the Internet Archive first. I think we were one of them. Anyway, we're always early. Yeah.
The first science podcast with multiple hosts, for sure.
Run by a woman.
Run by a woman.
That.
Yeah.
Independent. Not owned by anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Boom.
I do think we need to do a live show where we're all in the same space.
Yeah. So 20th anniversary, we need to come together somehow.
Yes.
So I don't know what that means. I was also thinking, we could do a 20-hour broadcast.
Yeah.
Those are always fun.
So here's what I'm thinking.
Something like that. But
we
I have
to
one
get
more.
an Airbnb somewhere if we're going to do that. And then we could do the 20-hour broadcast live.
Yeah, that would be good. As opposed to, we could do it in the corner of my basement. What are you talking about?
Yeah, we could do that too. I just think it'd be very fun. Yeah, if we had like an honorary TWIS studio where there was a bedroom where we could take naps. And then just kind of like peel back out and fill up the coffee cup.
I'll just wait for Justin to drink too many beers too fast and fall asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm not gonna. So we had the 24-hour Twisted we're doing, and I, for some reason, thought that I would be able to drink a beer per hour.
But you drank them all like in the first hour.
Yeah.
I just lost track of, like, I should have had like a timer, a beeper that said like, okay, now you can open another one. But yeah, it was, well, but I recovered at some point. Didn't I come back to this? Maybe not.
Yeah. Okay. So another idea I was having, so we could do a 20-hour broadcast. We could do some kind of a live thing with live audience. Maybe it's a live audience 20-hour broadcast. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we actually get those bleachers that Justin has been talking about forever.
Oh, we
Or-
could do it like telethon style. We could do some fundraising in the live broadcast.
Right.
It's like a hotline.
And then my other idea is that we have 20 years of guests. And if we wanted to do some homework, we can go back through and find our favorite guests from the past 20 years and invite them to be part of a TWIS festival. And over the course of a week or 2 days, we have, and this could be an internet-based thing also, but we could do it real world or we could do it like internet. But then we have scheduled spots where these people come back and they talk about what they're doing now versus 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. They talk and we talk about their research and,
Like it.
I don't know, maybe get them to give, short presentations on their work, and then we have a conversation about it or something like that.
Oh.
But we could do like a festival
I love it.
that
I like
brings
it when
people in.
when we have company over. It's always nice.
Yeah.
I'm into any of it and all of it.
All of it.
I think my stipulation is, I think for the 20th anniversary, we need to all be in the same room for some part of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's definitely, I feel like that needs to be locked in.
Yeah.
I don't care where, but I feel like that's
Yeah, we
always
could. So
very
we could.
fun.
Yeah, I like the idea of. I mean, it would be really fun to have. Yeah, to have everyone together in one place and do that, and maybe it's over a couple of days. I like the festival idea. Maybe it's over a couple of days, and we people talk about their thing, and then we interview them. We all sit together and drink our beers or whatever because it's Portland.
And I like that we trash an Airbnb. While we're doing
Because
this.
we're
Yeah.
science rock stars.
Yeah, we can find an Airbnb.
Yeah.
I have like 100-foot long Ethernet cable. We could find an Airbnb with a good internet connection. Wire it. It'd be fine.
We could do the show from a KDBS mock-up basement, says Ed.
Yeah. I was thinking
Good.
it would be fun to do something from KDVS in honor of it too.
You know what? We can always
Yeah.
do a live show at KDBS anytime.
We
by the
could.
way. We could just go get our time slot and
We have
do
a
this
time
show.
slot. We could go there and
Yeah.
go do our time slot. It's
Gosh, that would
true.
be fun.
I think
And we could get an Airbnb in Davis.
Oh, that's a little tougher. Yeah.
Nah, you can definitely find
It
one
would
in
be.
SPAC, if not Davis, but you could definitely find one in Davis.
It would be really fun to do something back in Davis for the 20th
Yeah.
anniversary because that's where the show got started. That would be super fun.
Yeah.
And there are lots of cool scientists there. We could,
Mhm.
I mean, I know KDVS probably wouldn't give us like,
Yeah,
a
they would.
20-hour broadcast, but
they Totally would. They totally would. If it's in June, are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, if
Well,
it's in June, they're like, we are looking for DJs.
If you have ever talked out loud for a duration period, please volunteer to come down. We'll put you on the air right away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we would need to get
I'm
Ted and Greg back.
Oh, well, Greg's in town, so he's an easy pickup.
Ted's
Ted
got
is-
5 billion
Ted's now like
kids.
A
and-
stay-at-home,
5 billion.
dad.
No.
He's a stay-at-home dad of
Yeah.
at least 4
Yeah,
that I know
that's
of.
like 5 billion in my mind.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I mean, it's like greater than 2. It might as well be 5 billion.
So much entropy. Oh my god.
Right, Justin?
Yeah, it's pretty
But
much
he's in
like
the Bay Area. That's not that far away.
No, he's not in the Bay Area. He's in a place called Half Moon Bay.
That's the Bay
Which-
Area.
That's the
isn't.
Bay Area.
Yes, it
No,
is.
it
It's
is
one of the 9 Bay Area
not.
counties.
It is not the Bay Area.
Actually,
What it is you know where they
Justin.
found King Kong? That island with the constant fog around it.
Yeah.
That's what Half Moon Bay is. It's this little beach community with a constant layer of fog around it, And it's not till you drive up a mountain, down a mountain, that you can even enter this forgotten land. And there are dinosaurs. You will see dinosaurs on your
So
way. You will see dinosaurs on your
Exhibit
way
A,
there.
when I used to commute to Half Moon Bay, when I worked in Half Moon Bay, it was usually foggy in San Francisco and sunny in Half Moon Bay. It's actually
Yeah.
sunny
I have
there a lot.
No,
A
I
lot
have
more.
never seen
B,
sunny in-
now that they have that tunnel, it's now only 20 minutes from San Francisco.
a tunnel? I
Yes.
didn't know about the tunnel.
Double
Both-
slide is gone.
Oh
When
wow,
did the
yeah, they did
tunnel
that build. They built that big tunnel. That's right.
Yeah, it opened
Ah.
in 2011 or 2012.
Oh,
It
no.
opened.
Then I'm still going the old way. I'm still going the way where you see
You
dinosaurs.
can't go the old way.
You
It
can't
is
go the old way
pedestrians
anymore.
only.
I don't even know what you're talking about then.
So in the YouTube chat, we have.
Oh, you're talking about Highway 92. Oh, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, that old one. Bradley Owens says we should call it Twispalooza. Twispalooza.
That's awesome.
Okay,
Work-
that takes you to the
and-
early 90s, the peak
Yeah.
of your interest in going outside. Look,
Bolt and AJ say we should do it from the road live, rent an RV in a city with 5G.
There is an RV that we would have access to. That is a converted school bus.
Is it converted yet?
Well, I just got drawer slides. There'll be drawers soon.
Oh, did I?
But there's a plate. There's it's getting there. Let's take
Here,
Kiki,
let
your
me-
RV is also being worked on right now. isn't
My
it?
RV is being worked on right now. Let me
Now, just Blair needs an RV, and we can all show up in our RV.
in our
Hold on,
RVs.
guys. I'm not
Hold on, let me-
prepared. I'm trying to get a computer still. One step at a time.
What I'm going to do is show you some pictures of this RV right now. Where'd it go? Yeah, so let me see if I can get these pictures. No. Where's my pictures? Are you there?
Yes.
Okay, good, because I went to another place and then I thought that
Okay.
that I was frozen for. I'm like,
Is she talking to me?
oh, here.
Who's she talking to?
Who's she talking to? So here we go. I'll show you this picture. Bum, bum, bum. Screen share, and I'll show you the state. Why do I want to do it? Oh, Chrome tab. There we go. All right. Yeah. So, wait. Go back to that.
It looks like a lot of the front is
So there's the
Open.
RV, and
Uh-huh.
that's where the engine is supposed to be.
uh-huh.
There's no engine in it. There's no
Uh-huh.
transmission in it. It's a big hole in it. And I cleaned it. Let's see if I can show you another picture. That's me riding a quad in the country, drinking White Claw, being crazy. This is me cleaning the RV. That hole there is where the engine should be.
Oh no.
So I cleaned the RV. There, yeah, big hole where the engine should. That's the big thing. It's gutted, and we need to redo the interior, and we need to do that. But anyway, it's coming along.
Oh my goodness.
It's coming along. We threw the mattress out. I found much potential for hantavirus
Oh
this
no.
last weekend. Yeah. So the cool thing though, so our RV is getting this engine upgrade. So it was an old GMC basic 454 engine, and now it got like 3 to 4 miles per gallon. And now,
Yeah.
and now we're going to be upgrading to an 8.1 liter big electric transmission computer controlled thing that's gonna get us like 9 miles per gallon.
Yes.
That's so weird. So okay, I have a massively underpowered GMC also engine. But but it's yeah, I don't know. But I'm getting like 10 miles per gallon.
That's awesome.
Yeah, in a
That's
bus.
Yeah.
But the interior is hang on. Whoa, where am I?
Do you
at?
still
This
have
is-
to do the interior up on yours?
This is the interior. This is where the interior is right now.
Yeah. If
if
it
you can
runs,
see it.
that's awesome.
I've got one side. Oh yeah, it'll run again eventually. This is the kitchen side. This is actually, it's not just a lumber rack. This is actually the mounting for a couch to bolt on. So that's all ready to go there. So there'll be a
We
couch
can't
here.
see anything.
can't-
Are you trying
did
to
you
show
hit
us
screen
something?
share?
Oh no, weird.
Did you
I
hit
did
screen share?
but yeah, for some reason. Oh, there's another thing I have to hit somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. Anyway, let's see. Maybe this.
Oh, there you go. Here it comes. You're almost there.
Yep.
Okay, add to stream. There we are.
Okay.
Look at that. That looks like an unfinished
Whoa.
bus interior.
Yep, that's the. There's a kitchen on the left that's getting formed. This is lumber rack is where it's already. There's already a platform. I can't tell there maybe, but it's up off the ground for a couch.
Cool.
Yeah, it's getting worked on.
Are you going to sleep on the couch or is it going to have a bed in the back?
Couch is a
Sound
bed.
just
What are you
came back.
talking about?
Why did
It's
it
the
do
same
that?
thing.
Mhm.
Same thing.
Mhm.
Same thing.
Just checking. I know you sleep on couches normally. Just
You know,
curious.
it's beds are just like too unclaustrophobic for me. There's too many directions for the.
You like to be cradled? See, I'm
Yeah,
used
I
to
like the-
completely starfishing diagonally on
Oh.
a queen.
Yeah, until now you have a significant other.
But
Who
he
works
works at
different
night.
hours. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
so I still do that usually at least 5 nights a week.
That's right.
So
Yeah, most RVs. I don't know if the RVs fold out to become a double bed, but maybe the couches in them. Yeah, there we go, Hot Rod.
Yeah,
It's awesome.
well,
So
anyway.
maybe by June next year we will have 2 bus RVs,
Mhm.
ERVs, that we can drive around Davis in.
Yeah, although it sounds like Justin's will have an occupancy of 1. So
Yeah, that's what it sounds like.
but that's fine.
Today is car show. It's RV show, Lori. It is. And yes, Thunder Beaver.
That's a good one.
Yeah, he would be content sleeping in a cardboard box. Good night, Noodles.
So before everyone leaves, I just want to show everybody my
Yeah.
progress here.
The calendar you were sharing
So
it, and showing it off.
this is a pica or pica, depending on what you want to call it.
Yay!
I'll save my favorite for last. Okay. I also did a red panda,
That's awesome.
and I did an elephant bird. That's my extinct
love it.
animal for this year. See, I can't handle the not mirrored picture. I keep going the wrong way. And I have a rhinoceros beetle,
Awesome.
and I didn't realize until after I did it. I do love beetles a lot.
Beetles are awesome.
Dung beetle,
Sweet.
and then my
Oh,
favorite I've
take
done so
pictures.
far-
Take pictures of those. If you can take a high res picture of those before you put color on them.
Okay, yes, I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna scan them. And then
Yeah.
this is my favorite one, the
Oh,
booby.
I love that booby.
So these ones I haven't. The ones that are done that are colored, I haven't secured yet because I realized I really wanted to get this.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna scan these at when I can, so that for a coloring book. Is that what you're thinking?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I am.
You got it. Then we'll have 26 pages we could do from the last one and
That's
this
great.
one. So
That's great. I think that would be super fun.
Yeah. That's already. Oh, and I have
a
ones that I did a
coloring book.
million years ago as well. So I think we'd probably have close to 30 pages for a coloring book.
I think that would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be good?
Yeah, I think that's
Or-
plenty.
That's plenty.
And then we can self-publish on Amazon or something.
Uh-huh.
Oh, that's great. Yes, let's definitely do that. I can get
Yeah.
that going for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you've already done all that work.
Mhm.
We could do. Yeah, we could do. I think it would need to do descriptions of the different animals or
Mhm.
something. Their name, their scientific name.
So I'm trying to figure out right
Something.
now for 2020, I thought that we would be able to make a small square calendar, and we cannot. We can either make the big square ones that we made that first year, which I don't really want to do because they cost way more than
Yeah.
the rectangular ones. Or what I'm now leaning towards is doing the rectangular ones, and just, if nothing else, putting like the genus species along one side or something like that in the blank space. If I can get it together enough to put a fun fact in there, maybe I'll do that. But otherwise,
Yeah.
that's my current plan, I think. And I want to see if we can do it actually portrait orientation, because then you could have the words under. It would look cool, but I don't know if we can do that. It might only be landscape. I haven't double checked on that since I had that idea today in the shower. So
Yeah.
I'll have to look.
Yeah. I mean, will you have to create it all as like a single piece of art with like the border filled out with information and just have that be part of the border of the piece of art?
So if we use the same interface we've done in the past, which I think we are going to do, I will not have to do that. You can drop text boxes onto your design and stuff. Super cool.
Okay, I have to go. It's past my bedtime.
We should go too. What time is it? Yeah, 10:30.
Time to go.
Is
Yeah.
it already? Aw.
Aw, that time. But I would love, before we do go, I want everyone to think about, what does a TWIS 20th anniversary celebration feel like to you? What should we think about? What should we start planning? Because we do need to start planning, pick a date, figure out
I
what we're
think
going
we
to
need
do.
an airship.
We're not going to get an airship for Maybe we can go to maybe we'll go to Santa Fe and rent an Earthship as an Airbnb.
Oh my
Yes.
gosh, that would make me that. Or
That could be good.
Is it Santa Fe or is it where's the hot spot? I think it's
Right outside of Santa Fe, isn't it?
isn't it?
Yeah, it was like a half-hour
It's,
drive. We just didn't have time.
Okay. Yeah. There was a. That's right. Oh, yeah. We should do that. I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, and then I don't know. Maybe we could return about Meow Wolf. No big deal. Whatever. Fine. Cool. Whatever.
I love a meow wolf. In the morning.
Oh man, I could spend
Yeah.
another 6 hours in there. I swear.
Right. Yeah.
So
Next time I'm
good.
not coming back out. I'm just gonna stay inside.
Yeah.
Just stay there. I'm never
Wait until they close
leaving.
it. How do they
blend in.
sweep that thing? I'm very curious if they have a
That's gotta
method
be.
for
Oh
sweeping
my
it.
god. Yeah, if they do it like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
They wear fuzzy clothing that looks like those big
Oh my god.
noodly mops.
Yes. They wear the cat mop.
They wear the cat mop and then they go around
So
like
good.
that.
Yes, Ed says have a TWIS beer created in Portland. Have somebody name a beer.
That would be awesome.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay,
Or
stay the night-
wine or
stay the night,
something. Yeah,
Blair.
is there anything else that we need to talk about? The
Not
calendar's
tonight.
coming out. We got 20th anniversary. The holidays are gonna be coming soon. Oh my gosh! Do you know it's only like 2 months until Twissoween?
I can't right now. Too much.
It's 2 months until Twissoween, and yeah, we're hitting the fourth quarter of the year already, everybody. Let's do this. All right, we can do this. Okay, now, Justin, I think I'm ready.
Okay.
Say goodnight, Blair.
Good night, Blair. Say good night, Justin.
Good night, Justin.
Good night,
Kiki.
Kiki.
Good night, everyone. I hope that you have an amazing science-y week. We'll be back here again next week. And yeah, school is back in session. Things are getting back on schedule. Hope you all get some good rest. And thank you for being part of TWIS tonight. Good night. Where's my button? End in the broadcast. Do I want to do it? Yes. Good night.